So we are finishing the chapter today. We are talking about what I like to call dots. Dots stands for difference of two squares. So that is our goal today. Our goal is to factor the difference of two squares. Here is the formal definition. I want you to write this down real quick. I will show you a way to make it a lot easier than what it looks on the board. But basically when you're doing dots, you start with two squares. A squared and B squared is what is shown right here. It's a difference, so it's a minus sign in the middle. A difference of two squares. Whatever number you squared to get the first number goes in the front of your two binomials. Whatever number you squared to get the second number goes in the back of your two binomials. One binomial gets a minus sign, one gets a plus sign. You can put the plus in front, the minus in the back, or the minus in front, the plus in the back. It doesn't matter. Any questions so far? Did you all get this in your notes? This is like a really good notebook quiz type question. Everybody got it? All right. Now, all of these questions have to do with what we call perfect squares. So I want to review what the perfect squares are. You get perfect square numbers by squaring things. So what's 1 squared? 1. You should be writing these down. What's 2 squared? 4. What's 3 squared?
9.
What's 4 squared?
16.
What's 5 squared?
25.
Very good. 6 squared?
36.
7 squared?
49.
49. 8 squared?
62.
64. Oh man, you were on a roll there. 9 squared?
80. 82.
81.
Ooh.
10 squared?
100.
Yeah, that's an easy one. Alright, here's where it gets a little more challenging when you get above 10, I think is where they get a little harder. 11 squared is 121. 12 squared is 144. 13 squared is 169. 14 squared is 196. I always think those are cool because it's like the last two numbers reversed. 15 squared is 225. There's a larger one on your homework, but we'll get to it when we get to it. For the most part, 1 through 15 should get you by in this class. If there is ever a larger one, I can show you how to type it in your calculator, or I can help you out with the answer. Just so you know, if you don't want to look back at this list, the numbers 1 through 100, those perfect squares, you can just use your factor sheet. Like if you find 100 on your factor sheet, 10 times 10 will be one of the factors. So you could do it that way. Or else you can just sort of memorize these. So the perfect squares, the ones you'll see in the problem today, are like the 1 and the 4 and the 9 and the 16. And then you'll have to know that it was 4 squared that gave you the 16, and it was 3 squared that gave you the 9, and so on. Any questions so far?
Don't do that.
I will not change yet. I'll give you guys a minute to write these down. The quicker you are with your perfect squares, the quicker this will go. You'll be flying through the lesson.
It's 10. It's 10 of these.
So the first example for dots, difference of two squares, we're going to look at is x squared minus 16. Whenever I see a dots, so difference, there's a minus sign. 2, there's only 2 terms, and they're both perfect squares. Anytime I see that, I fork them.
What is that?
Fork them up. Just draw 2 little pathways from each one. Kind of like a tree. I don't know why I call it a fork. I don't know. Alright, what times itself gave you x squared? 1 what?
X.
Yeah, so I'm going to write x and x on the bottom of those forks. What times itself gave you the 16? What number times itself? Look back on the list we just made. How would you get a 16? What number would you square? A 4. So I'm going to rate the 16 as 4 and 4. Now, in every single dot scenario, one of your factors gets a plus sign, one of your factors gets a minus sign. These are binomials just like last week, so put parentheses around the two terms. Now you might be saying, how does this work? What's the trick? Remember, this is all about like undoing double distributing. If you double distributed here, you get x squared minus 4x plus 4x minus 16, and then the middle ones cancel, and you just have x squared minus 16, which is what we started with, right? Remember, factoring just means rewriting it as a multiplication problem.
Okay, so how did you get the 4 again? I'm sorry, I can't.
This one,
Yeah, the 4.
you have to ask yourself what number times itself. What number would you square to make a 16? It has to be the same number in both binomials. That's how the x term cancels out. So instead of a trinomial like an x squared and then an x and then a constant, this has no x term in the middle. It's just the x squared and the number in the back. So this is our actual answer. This you don't really need in your notes. This was just me showing you why this works. This is the important part. Any other questions? All right, let's look at another one. So as you're writing this, you can draw your forks, fork them up. What number times itself gives you x squared?
1x.
X and x, good. What number times itself gives you a 1? 1 and 1. 1 gets a plus, 1 gets a minus. Write them with parentheses, and you're done. Questions? All right, here's example 3. These do go pretty quickly, yes. Make sure you're paying attention. All right, fork them up. How do you make a v squared?
1b.
V and v. How do you make a w squared?
w.
W. 1 gets a
Plus.
plus, 1 gets a
Minus.
minus, parentheses in the middle.
Do we have to make those forks?
You do not have to make the forks. Nope.
I'm like, these forks.
I like the forks because they just show you where each number is coming from. Like, how do I break up v squared? How do I break up w squared? All right, let's look at number 4. We can try an example without the forks. When I do it without the forks, I do the parentheses first. What number do I need in the front of each set of parentheses?
12.
A 12. Good. 12 times 12 is how you get the 144. What do I need in the back of each parentheses?
W.
A W. One of them gets a
Plus.
plus, one of them gets a minus. If you want to do it that way, just sort of filling in the blanks without the forks, that's fine. If you like the forks, I'll just add them in. The 12 and the 12 and the W and the W. It's up to you. Do what works for you. Questions? All right, number 5, x squared minus 81. What times itself gives you x squared?
X.
X and X. What times itself gives you 81? 9 and 9. One gets a plus, one gets a minus, both get parentheses. Raise your hand if you need help. Nope, if you want to do x minus 9, then x plus 9, that's fine.
Okay.
As long as there's one positive, one negative. Alright, here's number 6. Alright, how do you make a y? Squared. Y and y. How do you make a 16? 4 and 4. I'll do minus in the front, plus in the back, just to show you that that is an option as well.
Oh, it doesn't matter?
Doesn't matter. Nope.
This is pretty easy.
Yeah, once you get the pattern, these go pretty quickly.
So, will every number that be like on the end, like 16 or whatever, is it going to be every number like we just go down?
Yeah, they'll all be perfect squares today. Yep.
Alright, so that's what's up.
Alright, here's number 7. Along with that question, will they all be perfect squares? There's really only a certain number of combinations I can do in this class, right? So a lot of these problems will repeat. They'll be the same problems on your homework, the same problems in your notes, the same problems on your quizzes. So don't be surprised if you see x squared minus 9 or w squared minus 9. It's all pretty much the same thing.
It's 3, right?
The 9 is, yeah. So the way to make an a squared is a and a. The way to make a 9 is 3 and 3 plus minus parentheses. Yeah, this is a lot easier than the other ways to factor. That's why I like to end the chapter with this one, you know. Everyone can sort of figure this one out. Questions? All right. X squared minus 100.
Oh my goodness, we almost done.
How do you make an x squared?
1. Wait.
How do you make a 100?
10 and 10. I don't know. Oh, 10.
A little late there. What are your questions? All right, here's number 9. We again have a dots. Everything we're looking at today is dots, difference of 2 squares. How do you make a y squared? How do you make a 25? One gets a plus, one gets a minus, parentheses. All right, you guys ready to finish this lesson? X squared minus 81.
Okay. 9. X.
X and X, 9 and 9. What else do I need?
Plus and minus. In parentheses.
Plus, minus, parentheses. Good, so again, remember this only works when you have a difference of 2 squares. Alright, if not, you got to go back to either GCF or MA like we learned last week. So that's the third way to factor. Any questions on this? Alright, here comes your homework.